ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. We continue February the 17th? The 17th, 2019, Sunday night, 7:42 p.m. Which one is inshallah this best night of Jumad al-Thani, or the 12th night of Jumad al-Thani, 1140 after the hijrah or the migration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we were talking about the chapter, which we said these are the chapters which the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, that he emphasized the importance and raised the awareness of these particular chapters that we've been covering for the past couple of lessons, especially the one concerning extremism, which is ghulu. Is this the right one? Yeah, it's the right one. Oh, wait. I just had my page on, I lost it. No. Which is concerning ghulu, or extremism. And likewise, the new chapter which we started, which is the chapter which comes in the severity of the one who worships Allah by the grave of one righteous. Then how much more if he worships him? So we started on this chapter, and we also covered some details in regards to the funeral prayers. As I wanted everyone, or we wanted this, not the chapter, what we're about to cover now, it is in direct correlation of what we're speaking about now, no doubt. But there's no problem to mention extra benefit in what I mentioned last class. As I said, I wanted to bring in what the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani, rahimahullah, which he mentioned in his book, which you'll find a lot of Ahl Ilm praise, which is the book called Ahkam al-Janaiz wa Bid'iha, the rulings of the funeral prayers and its innovations. The rulings of the funeral prayers and its innovations. So before we start, as we talked about the chapter, as we laid down the foundation, we said that the chapter comes explaining about how it's impermissible to worship Allah by the grave of one righteous, having the belief that the dead person has some type of effect on your life, or have an effect on whether or not your supplication that you made to Allah is answered or not answered. Meaning, if you was in the graveyard, you have the belief that just the mere fact that you're next to the grave of this individual who's dead, that Allah is going to answer your dua as a result of you making dua by that dead person or by his grave. That's what's impermissible. That's what's impermissible, and along with the other details that we mentioned, as we mentioned other ones. But a person asked me, as one question was asked, what about the rewards that takes place, or the rewards that one benefits after his death? As one wanted to ask me. Or I think the question was asked, or was presented by one of the brothers. For number one, the great Imam wrote in this book that is Qayyim. It's a tremendous book in which you'll find a lot of Ahl Ilm mention its praise, such as the great Imam, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, rahimahullah, that talked about the book Kitaab al-Janaiz wa Bid'iha by the great Imam Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani. It was a Kitaab Qayyim, muhim. That it was a tremendous book, a tremendous, very beneficial treatise that the great Imam authored. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Before I start off and branch off, you'll find everything that I'm saying is connected with the book and with the chapter that we're in. Everything is connected, with no exception. You guys turn off the phone. When I hear my voice on the phone, it causes me some confusion. طيب. The chapter where it says, وَمَا يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ الْمَيِّتِ, or he wrote in his book what the dead person, what he benefits by, meaning after his death. What is the deceased, what does he benefit from? And some ask me, does a person that's deceased or dead or from the dead, do they benefit from something after his death of the living? Does the living have any effect on them? Keep in mind, like we said last chapter, or last class, excuse me, we said that the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen, he said, أن الأموات يأتي يزاورون لينفعوا لا لينتفع بهم. He said a very key word in statement. He said that the dead or the deceased, he said they're visited in order that they benefit. The dead would benefit from the living, not in order for them to be benefited by. Is it clear what I'm saying? Not in order for them to be benefited by. Which gives a distinction of what we're speaking about as far as the Kitaab At-Tawheed and what is the affair in which we're about to explain right now. Is it clear so far what I'm saying? So like we said, now we're just going to sum up everything. I'm going to give everyone the summary. So I'm going to summarize things in 4 sentences, then I'll give you the details. And that's the best way to keep information, to summarize, to give you the head of the masail that they call ru'us al-aqlam, or the head of the affairs, or the head of the affair in a concise manner. We give it to everyone. Then after that, we start to elaborate in detail on each keynote or what have you, or benefit. Fine. So just to sum up everything, we said, as far as the deceased, what do they benefit from? We say, number one, actually it's 5 things. I wanted to give something. For now, we say that the deceased, that they benefit, just keep in mind, for now, 4 things. Keep it summarized. 4 affairs. 4 affairs. For number one, the deceased benefits by supplication. By someone supplicating for them. I think that's clear. That the deceased benefits from who? Or benefits from what? Number one, dua. Supplication. Someone supplicating for them from the living. Asking to forgive them, or what have you. And the other affairs we're going to talk about, inshallah. So number one is what? Supplication. Number 2, the narration of fasting for one who performed siyam an-nadhr, what they call the fasting of taking an oath. Siyam an-nadhr. Siyam an-nadhr. Number 2, fasting for the one who performed a fast which is called the fasting of an oath that they took. What they call siyam an-nadhr. I'm going to explain it, don't worry. Keep in mind, I'm speaking about the second category. The only one that fasts for him, if he performs this type of fast, is waliyuhu, the one who's close in his family. Would it be for his child, his son, his brother, or what have you? Those who are close in his family. Sama anhu waliyuhu. His wali is the one who fasts for him. If the type of fast, like we said, is siyam an-nadhr, fasting of an-nadhr. An-nadhr is an oath. The oath that you take. Is it clear so far what I'm saying? I'm going to explain it, don't worry. Just making sure all the words that I'm saying is correct. So after a person dies, let's just say when the deceased, before they died, rahimahullah, before he died, he vowed for Allah that if Allah Ta'ala, for example, cures his sick, or if Allah allows me to return to my country safely after my trip, then it's upon me for Allah to fast a 1 week straight. That's called siyam an-nadhr. That's called the siyam of a vow that you took for Allah, where it was not obligatory by the origin of Kitaab and Sunnah. You binded it upon yourself. Is it clear what I'm saying? So that's what siyam an-nadhr is. Allah didn't make it obligatory upon you. You made it obligatory upon yourself by taking an oath for Allah that you would do something. But Allah did not make it obligatory upon you in the origin of the Kitaab and Sunnah. Is it clear what I'm saying? It's not Ramadan. It's none of that. That's from the Kitaab and Sunnah that Allah has obliged upon every servant. Siyam an-nadhr, you made it binding upon yourself. Allah didn't make it binding upon you. If Allah, for example, allows me to, or returns me back to my country safely after I perform Hajj, then it's upon me for Allah to fast 1 week straight. This is called Siyam an-nadhr. Nadhr. It's called Siyam an-nadhr. Noon, Dhal, Ra. Nadhr. So that's not what they call an obligatory fast, asli. It was not a fast that was considered an obligation by the origin of Kitaab and Sunnah, yarahmakallah. By the origin of Kitaab and Sunnah. Rather, you made it obligatory upon yourself. Let's just say that individual that performed that nadhr, that type of fast, he died. And he never what? Fulfilled it. He never fulfilled it. The narrations that we're going to mention is that when he dies, Sama anhu waliyuhu, that his wali fasts in his place. That he fasts or carries out that specific worship for him after his death. Only. Whether it be his brother, or for example, his brother or his father, if it's vice versa, if the son dies or the father, depends, the uncle, what have you. Those who's in the immediate family is close to him will fast for him. The siyam an-nadhr. So the person who's deceased benefits from the living by him fasting for him, the fast of an oath. Just to summarize. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? Is it clear so far? Everyone with me? The third affair, the third thing, is one paying off the depth or the depths of the deceased, a debt he might have owed. One paying off the depths of the deceased. For verily he what? He benefits by the living doing an act for him in this instance. The fourth is the righteous actions of one's children. The righteous actions of one's children. The righteous actions of one's children. If you have a son, and we restrict it by saying righteous. If your son is a righteous one, meaning he's a mu'min, obedient, upon At-Tawheed, not upon kufr, and the father benefits from the righteous actions of his children. If his children performs salat or prayer or what have you, or sadaqah, the dead or the deceased or the father or the mother, likewise, of course, benefits from the righteousness and the upright of his children or her children after their death. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? Don't worry, I'm going to bring all the evidences and proofs. Don't worry. And also, of course, we know the knowledge that one leaves behind and the sadaqatun jariyah that we include in that. I'll give the details of that a little bit in a minute. Just keep for that 4. The continuous sadaqah after the person dead and also the knowledge he leaves behind. I'm going to add that on. Just stick with these 4 for now. طيب. So number 1. So keep in mind those 4 affairs. Just keep in mind, keep your fist, if you want to say, if you want to keep it balled up. If someone was to ask you, does the dead benefit from the actions of the living? We say it's details in it and summarizing these 4 things if you want to say. If you want to say it in a concise manner, summarize, you can say it like this. Number 1, like we said, which is what, everyone? Supplication, generally. Supplication. Number 2, fasting of another, or an oath. in which the one who fasts for him in his place is wali, meaning someone in his family, who's close in his family. Number 3, Jayd, ahsantum. As we said, paying off the debts of the deceased. Paying off the debts of the deceased. A debt he might have been, or he has not paid off for the living. If he pays off his debts, the deceased benefits. And the last one, the 4th one, is what he said, that the righteous actions of one's righteous children. Make sure you mention that restriction, which is righteous. Righteous. Because a person might think, oh, what about the opposite? If he does evil, does the deceased now have to reap the repercussions or the consequences of his evil actions? We say no. You understand, everyone? He doesn't. We'll go out, don't worry, we're going to talk about it, inshallah. Keep in mind the other details, like we mentioned, the knowledge that one leaves behind to people. If they benefit from them, then likewise the deceased also benefits, which I'm going to elaborate on, don't worry. And also, likewise, the last thing is I said that continuous sadaqah, the continuous charity that's left after his death, likewise will benefit him. Meaning if he left like a well, he built a well and the people benefit from it, that reward will continue to what? Benefit him after his what? After his death. Or a masjid he might build, or what have you, that the people come in and they worship. All that worship that the people perform in, or the people read Quran in, or that knowledge is disseminated in, the deceased benefits from that. Because that's all considered sadaqah jari. It's considered sadaqah after his death. All those different things of a masjid, or like we said, all those different affairs we're going to talk about, inshallah. Don't worry. Taib. So what's the delil for the first category, brothers and sisters? What is it? For the first one, we said dua. We said dua is what? Is the first thing, or the first affair, that the deceased will benefit from after his death. As we know, the conditions have to be fulfilled. What conditions is that? That it has to be exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Hashr, ayah number 10. We said that those who come from after them, they say, "O our Lord, forgive us and our brothers that has preceded us in faith. And do not make in our hearts any rancor for those who believe. Our Lord, verily you are Ra'ufur Rahim." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the believers are those who come, of course, in the later generations. They make and supplicate for those who preceded them. And they say, for example, رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِإِخْوَانِنَا الَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَ بِالْإِيمَانِ. O our Lord, forgive us and for our brothers who preceded us in faith. Who preceded us in faith. So that ayah is to show that what? Supplication generally. For our brothers, of course, the mu'mineen, people of Iman, of course. Supplicating for them, especially for those who preceded us in Iman, and asking for their forgiveness, that the deceased benefits from the supplication of the living. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Also, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and there's a lot of narrations. We'll just suffice by mentioning one, is the great Imam Muhammad al-Sadin al-Albani that he mentioned. It says that the narration of the Prophet ﷺ that he mentioned, it said, دعوة المرء المسلم لأخيه بظاهر الغيب مستجابة. That the invocation of the Muslim for his brother بظاهر الغيب, meaning in his absence, is answered. And we said in his absence just does not mean when he's not present around him, but it also means after his what? After his death. After his death. Until the point where we said, and we know in the narration, عند رأسه ملك موكل يقول كلما دعا لأخيه بخير يقول آمين ولك بمثل. He says, every time he makes supplication for his brother, by his head is an entrusted angel. An angel that's been entrusted to say, or every time he supplicates for his brother with good, the angel will say, or the one who's been appointed will say, Ameen, and may you have similar. Right? Type. So that's the dalil to show what everyone, that dua is answered. So nobody try to say we blind follow Shaykh al-Albani. Shaykh al-Albani brings his dalil. So in actuality, we're following Kitaab and Sunnah. And that's the reason why we aid certain positions based upon what the ulama present of evidences and proofs. So in actuality, we're following Kitaab and Sunnah. We're following Kitab and Sunnah. So you find that the great Imam al-Albani, that he's mentioned his dalil, and he's bringing it clearly from Kitab and Sunnah, is other than that, and other evidences and proofs. So that's the first thing. For this first, what? For the first category we mentioned, which is generally what everyone? Supplication. طيب. Number 2 was what? The fasting of wali al-mayyit صوم النظر عنه وفيه أحاديث. طيب. Here I want everyone to listen to this. To make up the fast, meaning the wali of the deceased, the fast of what they call another, making it up for him. Making it up for him. Firstly, the first narration of the authority of Aisha that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, and this is the Bukhari and Muslim and other than Bukhari and Muslim, he said, وَمَن مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ صِيَامٌ صَامَ عَنْهُ وَلِيُّهُ. Whoever dies and it's upon him fasting, then his wali makes up the fast for him. His wali makes up the fast for him. Is it talking about Ramadan? No, it isn't. This is also likewise the position of Sheikh Salih Fawzan in Kitab al-Siyam for Ramadan, which we'll probably go over in a couple of more months. It's only about 2 or 3 months left for Ramadan anyway. That as far as Siyam, after a person dies, the one or his wali will make up for him is the Siyam of another, of an oath. That's it. And that's what this narration is talking about. That's the exact same thing that Sheikh Salih Fawzan says. Exact same thing. You'll find that Imam al-Albani says exact same thing. Now listen. Well, it says here, this narration here generalizes. It doesn't mention Siyam another there. It just left it general, fast. Or the fast in general, if a person dies, he has to make up a fast as general. Then his wali will what? Make it up for him. But it didn't restrict it to what? To another. It didn't. It generalized it here in this narration. Type. So what's the narrations that restrict it? To make the Siyam of what we're speaking about another. Where is it? That's what I'm about to read now. There's another narration on the authority of Ibn Abbas. Also Imam al-Albani authenticated. And listen what he said. He said that there was a woman, رَكِبَتِ الْبَحْرِ فَنَذَرَتْ. نَذَرَتْ. She made a nazar. إن الله تبارك وتعالى أنجاها أن تصوم شهرا إن الله أنجاها أن تصوم شهرا فأنجاها الله تبارك وتعالى فلن تصوم حتى ماتت فجاءت قرابة لها إما أختها أو ابنتها إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فذكرت ذلك له. There was a woman that she sailed in the sea, or in the boat in the sea, and she نذرت. She made an oath, or took an oath, or vow. She took a vow that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves me, I will fast a month straight. Meaning if I get across the ocean and I come in my travels, or I set out in my travels, and I get to my destination safely, then what? Then I will fast a month straight. What type of fasting is that, everyone? That's called Siyam another. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what? Saved her. However, she did not fast until she died. So a relative of hers came, either her sister or her daughter, to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he mentioned that to him. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this: do you not see that if it was upon her a debt, wouldn't you pay it off for her? قالت نعم. She said yes. فَدَيْنَ اللَّهِ أَحَقُّ أَن يُقْضَى. The debts of Allah is more deserving that they be what? Paid off. They're more deserving that they be what? Or the most deserving that they be what? Paid off. So, the siyam of an oath, if a one does not perform it, is as if it switches to what? A debt. So you find that it's almost as similar to the which category? Number 3. So the ibadah or the siyam of a debt, or the fast of a debt, of another, is like a debt. That has to be what? Paid off. This is also included in Abu Dawood, Akhraj Abu Dawood. Also Imam al-Albani authenticated it. طيب. There's another narration on the authority of Sa'id ibn Ubadah. It says, استفتى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أمي ماتت وعليها نذر فقال اقضيه عنها. There's another narration from the authority of Sa'id ibn Ubadah that the message of Allah, that he sought a religious ruling from the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, verily my mother died and upon her was nadhr. Nadhr. She had an oath, or she took a vow. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to her, or said to him, excuse me, make it up for her. So her mother was dead. She was from the deceased. Radiallahu anha. So the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he do, everyone? Commanded that her wali, who was her son, make up the fast for her after her death. So this is all pertaining to what, everyone? The second category. The great Imam Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani, this is what he goes on to say, rahimahullah. He said, وهذه الأحاديث صريح الدلالة في مشروعية صيام الولي عن الميت صوم النذر إلا أن الحديث الأول يدل بإطلاقه على شيء زائد على ذلك وهو أنه يصوم عنه صوم الفرض أيضا وقد قال به الشافعية وهو مذهب ابن حزم وغيرهم ولكن that's not correct. طيب. So the great Imam al-Albani goes on to say, these narrations are صريح الدلالة, clear in its indication of the legislation of what? The fasting of a wali for the deceased. What type of fast? Nadhr. Nadhr. Wali is someone in your family. Someone nadhr. Yeah, wali is someone in your family, Suhail. What do you say? Sahih? Oh, he said sahih. Oh, I thought he said sahih. Oh, except, notice that he's going to say exactly what I just said a couple of minutes ago. Except the first hadith that we mentioned generalizes. It doesn't restrict it, which is all fast. Is that this? Did we say that's the correct position? No. No, it isn't. Then the great Imam al-Albani, he goes on to bring other aqwal from the great Imam. Imam of Ahl Sunnah, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Shaybani, rahimahullah, where even Imam Ahmad said, لا يصام عن الميت إلا في النذر. He says that no one should fast for the deceased except the fast of a what? Except the fast of what? Of an oath or vow one takes. And the only one that fasts for him is his what? Someone is wali. So that's the statement of Imam Ahmad. He also brings, because there's some other kalam, but I'm going to try to keep it summarized. Qultu, he also says, these details that were given was also the position of al-Mu'mineen, Aisha radiyallahu anha, wa Habr al-Ummah, Ibn Abbas. And also Imam Ahl Sunnah, Imam Ahmad. He says, in this statement of what we're saying right now, of what we mentioned in here, is where oneself finds to be correct. And it is the most what? The most just of statements. For verily in this mas'ala, this matter, we have a lot of narrations. And we know that from the science of this religion, or from the knowledges of this religion, science, but from the knowledges of the religion, is that we know that we try to gather all the evidences and work by all of them instead of what? Negating one. So you harmonize between all of them and working by all of them. For verily we know, لا يصار إلى النسخ إذا لم يمكن الجمع. As we're going to talk about that inshallah. That if you've seen that evidences are different, I don't want to sidetrack you guys with that. Let me keep it. It's too much information. طيب. Just keep with the position of Aisha, which we just mentioned here clearly, is what? That what we're speaking about now is pertaining to nadhr, and that's what the narrations all support, which is when one does for the deceased after his death, if he's in his family, that he just fasts in his place, the type of what? The fast of what, everyone? Nadhr. Just keep it simple. I don't want to start confusing everyone. It's a little bit more details. Keep it like that. No. Also, the great Imam al-Albani put some more emphasis on it, on this position where he says, he brings it home. He says, وَأَبَتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِنْ ذَلِكَ وَلَا يُصَامُ عَنْهُ النَّذْرُ وَلَا فَرْض. He says, for verily, يُصَامُ عَنْهُ النَّذْرُ دُونَ الْفَرْضِ الْأَصْلِ. Now this is another important detail here that I'm going to mention. He says, the wali makes up the fard, or the siyam of another, not the siyam of what is asli, meaning that which Allah made obligatory. He does not make that siyam up for him. Is it clear what I'm saying? The siyam that Allah made obligatory in asl al-shara', in the origin of Kitaab and Sunnah. It's a dun al-fard al-asli. And that is the statement of Ibn Abbas and those who are from his companions, who took knowledge from Ibn Abbas. And this is the correct position. He said, why? Because the obligatory fast in which Allah has made obligatory is similar to the salah. Right now, a person misses certain prayers. When he dies, you're going to make it up for him? The obligatory salah. Obligatory salah, you can't make it up for him. He said, for example, Farad al-Siyam, Jadin Majra salah. Just as no one prays for anyone else, and no one becomes Muslim for anyone else. He says, likewise, Siyam. He says, as for nadhr, then that is something that was binding and made in the responsibility or the depth of the abd that he made for himself, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make binding or obligatory upon him at all. But he made it binding upon himself. So as a result of it, it became similar to what, as we said, a debt. A debt he had to pay off. Here in this instance, the great Imam goes on to say, فَيُقْبَلُ الْقَضَاء قَضَاءُ الْوَلِي لَهُ كَمَا يَقْضِي دَيْنَ. He said, for here, is just now we made it similar to what? A debt. He says, for here it's accepted what? That his wali pay it off for him, or perform it for him, just as similar he would pay off his what? His debt. So here in this particular instance, fasting in his place is accepted. Similar to that, how he would pay off his what? His debt. There is also some, and this is the mahd al-fiqh. وطرد هذا أنه لا يحج عن ولا يزكي عن إلا إذا كان معذورا بالتأخير كما يطعم الولي عمن أفطر في رمضان لعذر. He says, what will also come as we would think, وطرد هذا, also, that person doesn't perform hajj for him after his death, of course, or that he will not perform zakat for him after his death, except, let's just say, for example, he was excused bit-ta'khir, that he put it off, and the wali will feed for him. Similar to the one who broke his fast on Ramadan with an excuse, due to an excuse. He had a justifiable, legislated excuse. As for the one who's negligent, and he had no excuse, he was just mufarrid. Mufarrid means he was negligent. من غير عذر, without any legitimate legislative excuse at all, for verily the performing of other than that, of what we just mentioned, the details, for the obligatory or duties that Allah has binded, in which he was negligent in, no one can make it up for him. No one at all. وَكَانَ هُوَ الْمَأْمُورِ بِهَا ابْتِلَاءً وَامْتِحَانًا دُونَ الْوَلِيِّ. So also, nobody was able to benefit as someone who now is to come, I want to make tawbah for my father in his place. Or I want to become Muslim in his place. Or I'm going to pray my prayers for him in his place. Or other than that, from the duties of Allah, in which he was negligent in until he became, until he died, excuse me. And this is also what Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in his book called Zad al-Ma'ad, which will suffice with that as far as the second category was. The third one. Third category, which is what? Paying off one's debt. I think that's clear, inshallah. We'll just mention. There's a lot of ahadith in that. I think everyone knows that to pay one's debt off, or any Muslim can pay off the debt for his brother Muslim. I think that's clear, inshallah. I don't have to really bring any ahadith in there, I hope. Tayyib. Let's go to a fourth one. The fourth one. The righteous action of the child who's righteous, or the righteous child. What the righteous child does of righteous actions. For verily, for the two parents, they will have similar to his reward. So not only the child gets the reward, the parents also get the reward due to their effort they put in cultivating the child. And these type of narrations is an incentive and an encouragement for us to focus on raising our children properly and playing a tremendous role in their development and cultivation. So it says here in this narration, what does it say, everyone? Or this category we're talking about here. He says, for the righteous child, ما يفعله الولد الصالح من الأعمال الصالحة فإن لوالديه مثل أجره دون أن ينقص من أجره شيء لأن الولد من سعيهما وكسبهما. He says, what the righteous child does of righteous actions, for verily, for both parents will have similar to his reward, without his reward being decreased therein. For verily the child is from their sa'i, from what they set out for, of good deeds, or for what they set out for. And they are also, and the children are also from their kesb, from their acquisition. Also from their what? Their acquisition. As we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Najm, in Surah Ayah number 39, He says, وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. That it does not belong for man except what he set out for. إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. And we know the children are min sa'yi al-walidain. They are from what the two parents set out for. To have righteous children. So you'll find in the narration, it says, إِنَّ أَطْيَبَ مَا أَكَدَ الرَّجُلُ مِنْ كَسْبَهِ وَإِنَّ وَلَدَهُ مِنْ كَسْبِهِ. Verily the most wholesome of what? A man benefits, or what he eats or benefits of his acquisition, is from his acquisition, meaning what he's earned. What he's earned. And verily the child is from his kesb. The children are from his kesb. Meaning from his what? From his acquisition and from his earnings or what have you. طيب, there's another narration on the authority of Aisha radiallahu anha. It says, أن رجلا قال إن أمي أفتلت سلبت أفتلت نفسها ولم توصي وأظنها لو تكلمت تصدقت فهل لها أجر إن تصدقت عنها ولي أجر قال نعم فتصدق عنها. So it says that the man here, he said that verily my mother أفتلت نفسها ولم توصي. And I think it means here أفتلت, meaning that she wasn't able to speak to the point where she died suddenly. It was a type of sudden death. It was very sudden, I think, if you want to say, for like a better word. That ummi uftilat, like she died like a sudden death. It was very unexpected, like a sudden death. She did not make the wasiyah or give her covenant of where her estate would be distributed or how it would be distributed or what have you. And he said that if I thought, and I think that if she was able to speak, she would have gave it in charity. So then the son went on to ask the Messenger of Allah, would I have reward if I gave charity in her place or on her behalf? So he says, and also will I have a reward too, O Messenger of Allah? So the Messenger of Allah said, yes. So her son gave sadaqah in her place, which is from what? The righteous actions of the righteous child. That if he does a righteous action for the creation, of course, then the parents also benefit from the action of the righteous action of the children, even after their death. Even after their death. Also the narration where it says, I'll just read this one. The Sa'd ibn Ubadah, Akha Bani Sa'ida, Tuwfiyat. The Sa'd ibn Ubadah was the brother of Akha Bani Sa'ida. His mother passed away. He wasn't present. He was somewhere else. He was غائب عنها. فقال يا رسول الله إن أمي توفيت. My mother passed away. He said, وأنا غائب عنها. I'm far away. I'm somewhere else. And I'm not in her presence right now. I mean, I'm not in her vicinity or by her. فهل ينفعها إن تصدقت بشيء عنها؟ قال نعم. قال فإني أشهدك أن حائط المخراف صدقة لها. So he went to the Messenger of Allah, said, my mother passed away. And I'm not present, I'm somewhere else. فهل ينفعه, will it benefit her if I gave charity on her behalf or for her? He said, yes. He said, for verily, I make you a witness, O Messenger of Allah, that the wall of Mikhraf, I think it was like a garden of which was called Mikhraf, is charity on her behalf, or charity for her. Was it clear so far, everyone? You with me? Hold on. See your energy. Attention span. He said for what? طيب. The great Imam al-Shawkani, listen what Imam al-Shawkani mentioned Nail al-Awtar. Nail al-Awtar was one of the books we studied in college, in Hadith. The Imam al-Shawkani, they mentioned Nail al-Awtar. This is what he said. He said, وأحاديث الباب تدل على أن الصدقة من الولد تلحق الوالدين بعد موتهما بدون وصية منهما ويصل إليهما ثوابها. فيخصص بهذه الأحاديث عموم قوله تعالى وأن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى ولكن ليس في أحاديث الباب إلا لحوق الصدقة من الولد. Imam al-Shawkani mentioned Nail al-Awtar. He said the ahadith of this chapter indicates that charity from the child, the walad. Did he say the common folk from everyone else? We're talking about what, everyone? Key word. Child. Key word. تلحق الوالدين بعد موتهما. He says that the sadaqah, the charity that the child gives on their behalf, that they what? That the parents benefit from it and they obtain the reward after their death, even without them giving a wasiyah or giving some type of what? Wasiyah, meaning a type of testimony of what or how the estate will be distributed of their wealth. He says also that the two parents benefit from the righteous actions of the child after their death, and they will attain its reward. It says in these narration restricts the generality of the statement that mankind will not have except what he set out for. These narrations restrict it, meaning that is from the child. لكن ليس في أحاديث الباب إلا لحوق الصدقة من الولد. However, the ahadith in this chapter which we're discussing, that nothing of the charity will benefit those two parents except what was given from the child. It was given from the child. وقد ثبت أن ولد الإنسان من سعيه فلا حاجة إلى دعوى التخصيص. وأما من غير الولد فالظاهر من العموميات القرآنية أنه لا يصل ثوابه إلى الميت فيوقف عليها حتى يأتي دليل يقتضي تخصيصها. Mumtaz. This is very beneficial. He says, however, there's nothing in the ahadith except showing and indicating the charity that was given from the child, that the parents benefit. He says, verily it's been established that the children of a man, or from the parents, of course, is from his sa'i, from what he set out for. And he said there's no necessity for now what they call da'wat takhsis, that we claim that there's what? A restriction. Just keep listening. So basically he's trying to sum up and just say that from other than the child that gives on the behalf, he said what is apparent from the generality of the verses of the ayat in the book of Allah, that its reward will not what? It will not benefit the deceased, except that it's only from what? From the child. So he says we stop upon that. That's enough. He said, unless there's a dalil that necessitates other than what we're mentioning. Well, all we're saying for now that that the child of the parents, of course, if he does a righteous action, the children do righteous action, that the parents do benefit after their death. The great Imam al-Albani also agreed with this. And he also started criticizing the ijma' of the consensus that the great Imam al-Nawawi claimed. He started giving some a very strong criticism. If you study knowledge, you enjoy reading these type of masail because it shows that the great Imam al-Albani also criticized Imam Nawawi. Because Imam Nawawi said no, it's the opposite. They do benefit the child and other than the child. And not only that, Imam Nawawi claimed a ijma' upon that. That's tremendous. He claimed a consensus. Imam al-Albani, he'll bring his evidences of proofs that consensus upon this matter which we're discussing is incorrect. So no one try to go Sahih Muslim in the Sharh and say, Imam Nawawi said this. And we will bring the evidence to show that Imam Nawawi in this particular instant, and this here, specifically made a mistake, rahimahullah. So clear what I'm saying, everyone? Jayyid. So the great Imam al-Albani goes on to say, he says, وَهَذَا الْحَقِّ الَّذِي تَقْضِيهِ الْقَوَاعِدُ الْعِلْمِيَّةِ. He said, this is the truth in which the qawa'id, or the scholastic-based principles, have what? Have judged. He's talking about the Kitaab and Sunnah. He said that al-ayah ala umumiha wa anna thawab as-sadaqa wa ghayriha yasilu min al-walad ila al-walid yannahu min sa'ihi bi khilaf ghayr al-walad. This is exactly what we just been mentioning. So he said that the ayah that generalizes that the reward of charity and other than charity, that it what? That the child that he gives on the behalf of doing righteous actions, that it also benefits the parent. Because we said the child is from his sa'i. It's from him, what he carries out, what he set out for, in contrast to other than the child. He says, however, Imam Nawawi and other than him claims the ijma' upon that, and then he starts to criticize him. He starts to criticize that ijma'. Right. So basically, Imam al-Albani, which like we said, in evidences and the proofs is to show that what? That the parents do benefit from the righteous actions of the child after their death. طيب. So we mentioned now the a'mal al-salihah of the child. Something else I wanted to mention. We can either add this onto this category, or we can make it a separate category. Let's just make it a separate one. Put in number 5, brothers and sisters. 5. What a person leaves behind of righteous actions, whether it be of the continuous sadaqah, or what? Or the knowledge that he leaves behind, or the righteous child, that makes dua for him. I was trying to join it with the last category, but we just make it separate. I was going to make everything all one category. Just make it 5. The 5th category is what a person leaves behind of athar, salihah, or sadaqat, of righteous actions, and continuous sadaqah jariyah, continuous charity that continues after his death. And if you want to say athar salihah, meaning the positive influences or the positive type of influences he left on the people after his death, the positive influences, or the ideas or righteous actions, whether it be in statements or actions or what have you, and the continuous sadaqah, as we know. I don't think I have to really kind of talk about that. I think everyone should know that narration. If Ibn Adam, that he dies, everything is cut off from his actions except what? Except 3. The first one is what, everyone? Sadaqatun jariyah, the continuous sadaqah, and what? Knowledge that is benefited by, and also a righteous child that makes dua for him. Jayyid. طيب. Just to sum up everything, so I gave everybody this mas'ala, this matter that we discussed, we did it concisely. So sum up everything. It's a little bit more details in this. Sheikh al-Albani goes in. Of course, we know that he's very scholastic, based in regards to his criticism. When he was scholastically criticize someone, he does it very well. He brings a lot of resources too. So he talks about that, and I just kept this summarized. So has everyone understood those categories? So we want to make it, instead of 4, we made it 5. So we said the first one is what? supplication. That benefits the what? The deceased. Second, siyam another. The siyam, the fast of a vow and oath that one took. If he did not fast. If he did not fast. And while he was living, then his wali or his family would make it up for him. The third, paying off the debt of a Muslim. Anyone could do that. Any from the Muslimun can pay off his brother or sister's debts and settle his debts. And that benefit, that person will what? In his grave will benefit. Fourth, righteous actions of one's children. Righteous actions of one's children. Then if we want to say the fifth, which is righteous action, the athar salihah, sadaqatun jariyah, knowledge, yuntafa'u bih, wa waladun salih, yad'u lah. The righteous action or the righteous child that makes supplication for him. I wanted to discuss the mas'ala that I talked about last class, the visiting of graves by the women. The warning went off. We got about maybe 7 minutes now. I heard the first warning. That's usually the 10-minute warning. Well, I kind of summed it up last time. I told you, brothers, that it was permissible. Exactly. I gave y'all the concise statement. Alhamdulillah, because I haven't reviewed this masala in years. Alhamdulillah, when I read it, it was exactly how I said it. As at hadith that I mentioned last class, there's other ones where Aisha visited a grave. Aisha visited a grave and made dua for her brother, Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr. And to the point where some of the Sahaba thought it was prohibited. Like, our mother, where are you coming from? I'm coming from the grave. She said, you coming from the graves? He said, yes, I'm coming from the grave, make a dua for my brother. So in their minds, it was what? Initially prohibited. Now, Aisha came and proved something else. And then she said, I heard from the Messenger of Allah, such and 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 such. She started breaking it down. Jayyid. With conditions. I'll start in a little bit of it and then we'll stop. First, the chapter of visiting the grave. Number one, we say تشرع زيارة القبور للاتعاظ بها وتذكر الآخرة شريطتها أن لا يقول عندها ما يغضب الرب تبارك وتعالى كدعاء المقبر والاستغاثة به من دون الله تعالى وتزكيته والقطع له بالجنة ونحو ذلك. So the great Imam, he inaugurated this matter by saying, it is legislated to visit the grave in order to take an exhortation by it. Meaning, what? Remind you of death and the hereafter. With the condition that one does not say at the grave what angers Allah. What angers Allah, or does an action that angers Allah, for example, by making dua, كدعاء المقبر, such as make a dua to the deceased, which is shirk. Make a dua to the deceased, or make a dua to the dead, or those who are in the grave, or seeking istighatha with them, and performing the acts of worship with Allah, they giving it to the creation, or giving it to the dead. Or saying definitely so-and-so is in paradise. That's also impermissible. Make a qata' lahu bil jannah. He's definitely in paradise. Khalas. He's made it. As you'll find, that is from the misguidance of the Christians and the people of the book. You can find them all the time saying that someone's definitely what? In paradise. I know he's in the Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father has raised him. No, you do not know that. You have no delil for that except your emotions. You understand what I'm saying? So what's it goes on to say? Now listen. So it goes on to say, Burayd ibn Husayb radiyallahu anhu, qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, verily the Messenger of Allah said, I used to prohibit you from visiting the graves. Visit it. For verily it reminds you of what? Of the hereafter and death. وَلَا تَزِدْكُمْ زِيَارَتُهَا خَيْرًا فَمَنْ أَرَادَ أَن يَزُورَ فَلْيَزُرْ وَلَا تَقُولُوا هُجْرًا. He said, وَلْتَزِدْكُمْ زِيَارَتُهَا خَيْرًا فَمَنْ أَرَادَ أَن يَزُورَ فَلْيَزُرْ وَلَا تَقُولُوا هُجْرًا. It's the Messenger of Allah said. I used to prohibit you from visiting the graves. Because it was in the first part of the revelation before the Aqeedah and the Tawheed became strong in their hearts. It was a fear that maybe it would have been a fitna on them and they would do something of polytheism and paganism. Once the Messenger of Allah seen that the monotheism became settled in their hearts and strong and well established in their hearts and deep rooted in their hearts, then the Messenger of Allah what? He changed it. Similar to that, you'll find, and we'll bring different examples, how the Messenger of Allah used to prohibit the drink of what? Intoxicants. Not only at the first part, of course we know stages, of course, but at one point, the Messenger of Allah also, there was a stage where he prohibited, when it reached the level of tahrim, of when it became haram, of course, but we knew it was levels, he also prohibited them from drinking in the vessels they used to drink it in. So not only was the khamr impermissible, but the cups and the vessels they drank it in was what? Impermissible. The vessels. At one time. Then the Messenger of Allah later said, you can drink in them cups, the cups, without the khamr. After it became clear and well settled that the danger was what? Was removed. We said the vessels is okay without you putting in it what? Intoxicants. You understand? That's what we're going to talk about later. Don't worry about that right now. Right now, just stick to what we're speaking about. But at any rate, the Messenger of Allah at one point in time, certain revelations, certain affairs were impermissible. He cut it off to shut the door out of fear that the people will what? Fall into something. So the Messenger of Allah, not only did he certain affairs that were made unlawful, but also Allah and His Messenger shut the doors that would lead the people down the road. And that door was shut for them until it was seen that they were what? Strong enough for where certain things at one point in time was made unlawful, and then Allah Ta'ala, when the Messenger of Allah made it lawful for them later on. From that is what we're discussing now. The beginning part of Revelation, what? It was all prohibited to go and visit the what? The graves. Because that was at a point where shirk and polytheism was very, very what? Prevalent. And it would have been a reason for a lot of them falling into paganism and worship of other than Allah again. Until the Messenger of Allah later on, when he seen that the people were strong, he said, visit it, for verily it what? Reminds of death. And then he said in this narration, let the visit that you do increase you in good. Meaning, increase you in remembrance that this will be your place inevitably. This is going to be you under the dirt. That everybody will be putting the dirt on top of one day. This is going to be all of our abode. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a good ending. This will be your abode, and remind yourself so it could be a reason for you being upright. Jayyid. He says, let your visit increase you in what? Good. So whoever wants to visit, then let him visit. And don't say hujra. What's hujra? With a dhamma on the hat, not hijra. Hujra. Hujra is every type of batil. Basically, it means falsehood. Any type of sin, whether it be done verbally or physically or what have you. And basically, Imam Nawawi mentioned what's the meaning of hujr. Hujr. Ha, jim, ra. Hujr. Bidam al-ha. He said, is al-kalam al-batil. Is false, vain speech. He says that the Messenger of Allah made the prohibition first due to the fact that they were close to Jahiliyyah, meaning they were new to Islam in the beginning. He said, for maybe perhaps they would speak a speech even of Jahiliyyah that was false, even in the graves. He says, when the qawaid of the principle of Islam, there goes the last one. The principle of Islam settled, and the ahkam became what? Became understood and clear. And everything became what? Strong. And the ma'alim became strong. Then it was returned or allowed for them to what? Visit it. But the Messenger of Allah gave a precaution or precautionary measure by saying, don't say hujra. What is hujra? The Imam al-Albani goes on explaining. He says, it's not hidden from everyone. of what the common folk do and other than the common folk when they visit the graves, from making dua to the dead. And that's hujr. That's the biggest and the most severest form of hujr, of false speech. He said what you see with the people making dua, supplicating to the dead. Not for the dead, to the dead. And seeking istighatha with them. And asking Allah by their haqq. And by their what? And by their honor. Or by their what? Their status or what have you. And that is from the most greatest of hujr and the most greatest of false speech, which the message of Allah had clarified. The last thing I'm going to leave this on, a person would say, well, tell you, what does this have to do with the women of AbdurRazzaaq? I'll leave it off with this statement here. And we'll stop here. Because there's other narrations. I'll continue this next class. Listen, great Imam al-Albani goes on to say, he says, وَالنِّسَاء كَالرِّجَالِ فِي اسْتِحْبَابِ زِيَارَةِ الْقُبُورِ لِوُجُوهِ. I'll leave it off here. He says, and women are like the men in highly recommending the recommendation of visiting the graves due to what follows. And then he starts to bring the evidence. And I'll stop here. Next week. See you guys next week. تفضل. Raise the child? We say that's from the last category. That the righteous effect that they had on the children, that'll be continuous for them. Absolutely. Absolutely. So no one can say here that I'm a stepfather, I ain't going to have that benefit, so what's the use of me raising a child? But rather you do get a tremendous benefit that will continue after your death. You cultivated the child, and that was a righteous effect that you left on the child, which you, inshallah, will have that reward for it. So no one can say, oh, I don't like to raise my stepkids, and they get on my nerves, like a stepchild. Treat them like a stepchild. Y'all guys in the way. There's a lot of people. It's just sad to say we live in a time where even people treat their own children like they're in the way. Tafadal. But he said, it said in the narration, if Allah allows me to return safely, then I'll fast upon me for Allah to fast a week straight or 2 weeks straight. He said that, is this counted as extremism? Yeah, what's that, the wind? Oh, never mind. I would say we would consider Siyam another, talked about this before. It's dispraised, number one is dispraised to do nadar. And some of the ulama say it's haram to do nadar. Some of Ahl Ilm say it's haram to do nadar. Especially if it's the nadar that you made a condition upon Allah for. That type of nadar. Like for example, if you said, if Allah does this for me, I'll do this for Allah. That type of nadar is dispraised, and even Ahl Ilm, some of them say it's haram to make that type of nadar. That type of oath is haram. Because your worship of Allah shouldn't be based upon what Allah gives you. That if Allah do this for me, I'll do this for Him. If Allah do this for me, I'll do this for Him. If Allah does this for me, I'll do this for Him. You understand? That's why you'll find there's this praise, this type of what? This type of another. If Allah gives me this, I'll do this. If Allah does this for me, I'll do this. You get it? That's why you find in the hadith of Bukhari Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, he says, إِنَّهُ لَا يَتَّ بِخَيْرٍ وَإِنَّمَا يُسْتَخْرُجُ بِهِ مِنَ الْبَخِيلِ. Verily, another, first of all, he says, لَا تَفْعَلُوا. The Messenger of Allah said, don't do it. He says, for verily does it bring any good. And verily it's extracted from the one who's stingy. So is the Messenger of Allah praising the one who does nothing? He's not praising the person. He's not praising him at all. But at any rate, if you do it, and it's binding upon you to what? You have to fulfill it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave from the Sifatul Mu'mineen that from their characteristics is that they make another, they fulfill it. They fulfill it. Tafadal. Another? It is legislated another. It is legislated. It's just that one shouldn't do it. If he stay away from another. He shouldn't do it. You'll find a lot of Muslim countries, people do it so easy. If Allah does this, I'll do this. If Allah does this, I'll do this. If Allah does... It's just ignorance from the people. Ignorance. You'll find a lot of Muslim countries, people do that. No. Any other questions about the lesson? Any other questions, Suhail? Camden? Siyam means fasting. To fast. And mahram, ya Kaden, mahram